My friends, welcome to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I'm pumped to be here with you all kicking it. Thanks so much for sliding in the diner booth. What do you have today, my friends? What are you in the mood for? You trying to get something random off the back of the menu? You just want a black and white milkshake? What do you need, my friends? I went to a diner recently. Was back home in New York, and you know I got some cheese fries, American cheese on the fries, a little gravy on the side. I also did a little ketchup. You know I like multiple sauces. What can I say? It's the kind of guy I am. Judge me if you need to. But either way, friends, I'm excited that you're here, and I'm pumped to introduce you to my guest today. Formerly known as the world's most handsome social media and content marketing strategist. Feel free to look that up. Our guest today now goes by another title, superhero. Jeff Gibbard is the author of The Lovable Leader. Oh my God, just want to give him the Care Bear stare from across the bar. You know what I mean? He's a strategist, a professional speaker, and the founder of several companies, including positive impact on the world. Jeff is also the host of his own popular podcast called Shareable. Well, I'm looking forward to this moment being shareable with Jeff. Let's bring him out here right now. My man, what up, Jeff?
That is what's up. I appreciate you having me. The crowd goes wild. It was excellent. Thank you so much.
I love it. Wish I had an air horn sound right now, but
I think I have one of those.
I'm sure you do. Looking at your face, you look like the kind of guy who has one.
Yeah.
Jeff, hey, my guy. That's it. Especially now that I'm a dad. It's nothing but rim shot jokes the whole time.
Nice.
So, brother, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I am loving the energy you bring to this show. I occasionally am on this side of the mic in a podcast. Occasionally I'm on the other side. And man, you are like bringing it. I feel this. I'm into it. And I love it. It's unreserved. I'm feeling this and I'm ready.
Let's LFG, as they say.
That is what the kids say.
That is what they say. It stands for let's fucking go, unless you people don't know that. So, but I'm pumped to be here with you, brother. We were recently introduced, and we also, in our little pre-conversation, found out that we're literally hanging out tomorrow in Nashville, which is super random because you are currently in the Philadelphia area. I'm in Minnesota. But we're flying to the same conference tomorrow, which is going to be super fun to meet you in person.
We'll meet at a diner.
I'm in. Nashville Diners. I'm sure they got one. So yeah. But brother, since this show is called Diner Talks with James, I always like to kick it off by, I'd love to know if we were able to meet in person at a diner, late night, we had a great time. We're just going to kick it for a while. What's your late night diner move?
Dude, that is such a complex question. There's so many variables. There's mood. There's where is this diner located? These are important questions.
Sure.
Does this diner have a reputation for anything? Because you could go really in the right direction if you order some hash browns, or it could be an epic fail. Pancakes are always safe. Grilled cheese, typically very safe and always very delicious. But if I had to pick just one thing at all, gosh, it'd probably just be an order of mozzarella sticks followed by some sort of a breakfast something or other. It used to be coffee and cigarettes, but I've since quit the cigarettes, not the coffee.
As he twitches. Yeah. Mozzarella sticks. I'm here for that, brother. We could Lady in the Tramp some mozzarella sticks for sure. It's the mozzarella sticks is also a classic safe grab, I feel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And iconic as well. It is, I'm a big fan of ordering the table mozzarella sticks, just kind of like some people order a table pancake at brunch and stuff like that. The table mozzarella sticks is always a good move.
Yeah, I'd like to specify that when I said a breakfast something or other, if I'm really going to be specific about it, which I think we should, we're diner people. It's the hungry lady, not the hungry man. The hungry man is always too much carb, not enough egg, not enough of the meats. The hungry lady is usually a really lovely spread.
Yeah. That's usually it's usually it's a short stack, right? Instead of the full stack.
Exactly. It's a little bit less. It's more my speed.
Yeah. I got a buddy of mine who, whenever we would attack diners late at night, he would go Hungry Man usually, and he would put his over easy eggs on top of his pancakes.
Yes,
and do it all. Do you do that? You don't separate?
Absolutely. That is the original McGriddle. You throw it in between, but also if you didn't say add cheese to the eggs, then what are you doing? Yeah. So it's obviously the cheesy eggs inside the pancake with the bacon. Mm-hmm. You put it in between the pancakes. Syrup over top of it. That's what you do. This
is it. Jeff Gibbard out here passing out pro tips, y'all. If you're not taking notes yet, you're messing up.
You're welcome.
Here's a fun fact that I just learned about you, and also why we're both passionate about diners, is that we grew up on Long Island, which is fun. We grew up maybe I'm going to say 20 minutes from each other at most. Yeah, give or take. Which is super fun. Did you go to the diner a lot growing up, or did you? Like for me, it was like after I did like school plays or chorus concerts, we'd go to the diner or things like that. What was the diner for you growing up?
So the diner for me was the late night spot. It wasn't like during the day, not as much. During the day, it was like pizza, bagels, pizza, bagels.
Yep.
And then morning was obviously either bagel or bacon, egg, and cheese. One word. But the late night is the diner. That's where you go and you hang out. Once you're in high school and you're hanging out with your friends, you're back from college, hanging out with friends. You go to the diner late at night. You're drinking way too much coffee for that time of night. You're not yet going over to the friend's house where you're partying and hanging out and doing whatever you're doing. So you stop at the diner, grab a little bite to load up, possibly even after the fact.
Yep.
So that's what I saw the diner as. But I it was funny. I never realized, but diner was always like part of the culture, right, of Long Island, as you well know. But I never realized that it actually is probably the number 2 spot of diner capitals in the world, with the first going, obviously, I think, to New Jersey. I've found out since that Southern New Jersey is like the diner capital.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that is probably true, but I will never admit. Because the day I give New Jersey credit for anything.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It took me so long because I moved here in 98 and like, man, I resisted the Jersey, like giving Jersey literally anything. Because so we talked about a little bit about football before we got on here. And, I'm an Eagles fan. I would never root for the Giants or Jets when I was in New York. Do you know why? They play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I refuse. To root for a team that calls themselves New York and plays in Jersey. That's false. That's invalid. I would never do it. So I didn't even like football until I moved to Philly. Yeah. And then I became part of this insane gang of hooligans and criminals that root for the Eagles.
Yep. I love it. My favorite story about the Link is that it was the first stadium built with a jail cell in it. And it just like underneath there is literally a place. I was like, if that's not commitment to your fandom, I don't know what is. Like, let's go ahead and build the jail.
I thought that was spot that we had before the Link.
It might have been. I'm not sure. Yeah. I know. No matter what, real. Philadelphia gets it. Yeah.
We're serious about our sports.
You are. You are indeed. So now, you mentioned bagels earlier, pizza bagels, bagel pizzas, and pizza bagels. Do you have a favorite bagel that you typically go? Like what, if you and I were grabbing bagels, what are you getting?
Again, it depends on the mood, but like, I'm just going to go with like, what's the ultimate bagel? What's Jeff Gibbard's ultimate bagel? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Because this is like some real
I'm shaking.
real thing. Okay. First of all, everything bagel, New York bagel. So I'm assuming we don't need it toasted. You're going to scoop that out just a little bit. You're going to fill it with scallion cream cheese. Okay. You're topping that with white fish salad, then lox, the salty one, tomato, onion, slice of American cheese. And you eat that open face, 2 halves, not together as a sandwich like some savage where everything's sliding out. You're going to eat them open halves. Okay?
Yeah.
That right there is the definition of decadence. Every bite of that is like a salty, creamy, crispy, crunchy magnificence that is unparalleled. Also, it's probably an 8,000 calorie breakfast.
Jeff, it sounds like there's not enough gum in the world after that. You're just spewing out onion, fishy.
No. That's why you get 2 halves. You got to share it with your person because you can't be the person with the smoked white fish, lox, onion breath. That ain't going to fly, especially in an everything bagel. You got poppy seeds in your teeth. You both have to commit.
Yeah, not a first date move on this one.
No, this is marriage material. You don't share a bagel like that with a first date. That's monstrous.
I love it, brother. I love it. The particularness is something that I enjoy. I start most of my speeches out with food quirks, and so I love the detail. It's amazing,
brother. We are soul sisters. We are brothers from another mother. I actually keep a journal of notes of Jeff's rules for food. For instance, salads should always be dressed. Dressing on the side is an abomination, and it should be by request only. All salads should be dressed. Why are you making me shake my salad at the table or mix it up with a fork with my uneven lettuce? It's irredeemable.
Irredeemable is I agree. Yeah, I've never once ordered dressing on the side in my life.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. Burgers, I eat the fries first because I can't stand cold potatoes.
That's fair.
So same with steak and potatoes or whatever. So yeah, but yeah. Anyway, we can dive deep into the quirks.
So much.
I'm sure some more will come up, and I look forward to them when they do. But I'm curious. Growing up on Long Island, tell me about your family. Are you an only child? You got some siblings? What was family life like growing up?
I'm an only child until I was about 11 or 12 when my parents split. Then I got stepbrother and a stepsister on my mom's side when she remarried. I got two stepbrothers on my dad's side when he remarried. Fast forward later on, I lost the stepbrother and stepsister on my mom's side. They split, but I kept the two stepbrothers. I had virtually no family to speak of, aside from like my mom, my dad. I had a grandpa till I was like maybe 7 or 8, but like I had like no family, which is why when I was in pursuit of, a partner in life, I was very drawn to people who had big families. And my wife's family is gigantic, and I absolutely love it. But because I had no family, and an only child, I was just like, I wanted a sibling to like, be a big brother too. I wanted like cousins. I wanted nothing. Everybody was somewhere else. Or my mom had a brother. He was uninvolved. My dad had a brother. They didn't talk. So I had cousins over there. Like I literally had no family. So it was just us. And then I had all these step families, which added to my family and gave me more family. And that was really cool. But yeah, I did most of the week at my mom's house. And then I went out to my dad's place out in the more rural area of Long Island for the weekends and for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, so as someone who grew up predominantly as an only child until you mentioned until you were 11, what did finding community look like for you? Were you did you try to make a bunch of good friends on the block? Were you all riding bikes together, or were you someone who learned how to spend time with your own by yourself? Maybe you had a stuffed animal community that you kicked it with and made up fun names for. What did community look like for you as a young kid?
Porque los nos dos. Did I say that right? Porque los nos. It's the one where it's like, why not both? Yeah. I'm going to nail that one day, but I tried. I'll take the win. So I did have a collection of delightful stuffed animal community. Mm-hmm. My daughter has inherited my bunny. His name was Hoppy, clever name. But now I was a social kid. I really liked being around people. I like making people laugh. So I used to do like a lot of voices and stuff like that. So I found myself like very class clowny. But I really made friends of all different types. Where I grew up the first 11 years of my life, it was a very diverse community, and I was brought up Jewish, and I was like very much a minority in the community that I was in, which was a really interesting experience. I'm glad that I had it. But because of that reason, I found it was a life skill. I learned how to become friends with people of all different like walks of life. I did have my closest friends were really the kids that were in close proximity. I had like my friend Edwin, who was like right around the corner. Matt and Paul were around the corner. I had like these friends that were like around the corner. We'd ride bikes, we'd play basketball, we'd play catch, whatever it was. And that's generally how I formed community as a young kid. But a lot really changed when I moved, because I think when you're a kid, like community is just like the kids on your little league team. Like your friends are your friends because either they're close or your parents are friends. Like that's that. But it wasn't until I moved in junior high that, one, I started noticing girls at that point. And two, I was like, well, this is a fresh start for me. And I was kind of a nerd in Freeport where I grew up. So like I didn't have a lot of like friends because I was like cool. I had a lot of friends because like I could help with homework. And when I moved, when I moved to Port Washington, that's when I was kind of like, well, I don't really care about school as much anymore. I would like to really actually have friends at this point. So that's when I really started to turn my eyes towards, how do I make friends? How can I expand my friend circle? How can I feel the safety of community, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love how school took a little sidestep there because it's like, let's focus up on this community thing. That's cool. That, I mean, I don't know if that was, or let me ask, was that a conscious move where you're like, I need to find community? Or was it like, what was it?
So I'll tell you that it was like you have like, if you look back on your life, you probably can count like 10 big experiences that shifted a direction.
Yeah.
One of them actually was partly the cause of this. So I was in all advanced classes where I grew up. I was like one of the smart kids, right? And when I moved to this new area, I moved from like blue collar and diverse to like wealthy white suburb, right? So when I moved to Port Washington, more wealthy white suburb, they're kind of like, oh, well, your AP class is there, not like our AP classes, right? So like very much that vibe. So I had to test in to get into all the AP classes that I was in. And interestingly enough, at that point in my life, I didn't know that I had ADHD. I just kind of was like, I was me, and like it hadn't really been discussed or anything. But so I come in on a weekend to take this test. It's a math test. It's like a time test of some sort. And I'm like super confident and cocky, like, because I'm really good at math at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And I come into this room and they sit me in a room with a guy who was going through stacks of paper and like crumpling them up and throwing them away. I'll never forget this because I was kind of like, why the hell is this person in this room with me as I'm testing? And he's just going through his papers and like cleaning out like a notebook or something as I'm trying to do this timed advanced placement math test. And I could not focus. I like was trying to like, it was like everything was like a car was like, just couldn't start. Right.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of things from that experience. One, I definitely did not pass the test. I did not do well on the test. And I really do think I would have had I been in the right environment.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I got from that was a couple things. One, they didn't really give a crap about me and whether or not I was going to do well or not do well. It was irrelevant to them. I was an outsider. I wasn't important. And two, maybe I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I'm probably just a big dumb idiot, so I might as well just make friends instead. So those are the two things that I got. And it wasn't until like, honestly, I was in my 30s that I was like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not dumb and average. Maybe I'm just different in the way that I learn, and literally have been carrying that around for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What a powerful moment, man.
Right?
Yeah, super powerful. I realized that I might have ADHD. It was probably college is when it first hit me, because that was right around the time. I was born in 82. I don't know how old you are,
80.
But yeah, okay. So, I mean, our generation, we weren't popping pills yet, at least those pills. Right. I mean, kids weren't being medicated at that time. ADHD was just, it was literally, well, boys will be boys. Yep. And that's just what it was.
He's got a lot of energy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's scampering. So it was something that came on later in life, and because I always hated all, like you said, the time test, the SATs, ACTs, all that kind of crap. I never did that well on them, and it's interesting to hear you talk about this. I guess feeling or hang up or maybe insecurity. You'll put the right word in there in a minute around your intelligence, because I spent a lot of time with people that I believed were way smarter than me. Yet they would always come to me for relationship advice or life advice, or, just want to talk about through stuff like that. And so I was like, yeah, you can tutor me in physics, but I got you with like anything that happens outside the school. And we know this, that emotional intelligence was never taught or celebrated or acknowledged until I didn't realize emotional intelligence was a thing until I was like 34. And I was like, hang on, maybe I am smart. Right. And maybe like I like the way you put it, where it's I'm different, but different is beautiful, and different is cool, different is me, as opposed to different early on is different is bad, different is insecure, different is something I need to change. Would you agree with that?
100%. And like, I really have a lot of resentfulness towards school as an experience, because I don't believe it's an inclusive experience for people who, who process the world differently. And I'll give just a couple examples of it. So I was excellent at tests in general, mm-hmm. like where I would fall apart. And like, I still have several phrases that haunt me in my life. I don't know if any of these will resonate with you. The first is husky.
I can't wait.
The first is husky.
Okay.
Husky was like the jeans that I wore when I was a little fat kid. So husky, whenever I hear that word, like, even if somebody's like, isn't my husky cute? I'm like, don't say that word. So husky just doesn't do it for me. The second one is the phrase, if he'd only apply himself. It's like gives me the cringes because I was applying myself. I just had a different set of skills, right? So yeah, I didn't do really well with my homework because that's some granular stuff that didn't make any sense to me. I got the answer right. Why you need me to do all this work? So I had the experience of feeling like you did, like I'm surrounded by all these people who are smarter than me. They're not smarter than me. They just were different. They were good at different things that the system was designed for. They could follow assignments. They could hand it on time. They could this, they could that. But I was getting the same scores on tests as they were. I just wasn't good at all the other stuff. And to your point about relationship advice and all those other things, I distinctly remember, and this is, so I give a talk on that I draw from my experience in my MBA. I learned 3 things in my MBA. I'm going to share one of them with you. So I'm in my MBA, and in the first 2 semesters, it's all accounting class. It's all economics. It's all, finance. It's all stuff that like me no good at because it's a lot of, spreadsheets and numbers need to line up. So I'm terrified and I'm getting help from everyone and I feel completely worthless. And I think maybe I'm not cut out for business. Maybe this isn't for me. And then we get to the 3rd part of the course and all of a sudden we're in this class called organizational behavior. And the professor mentions that there's going to be essentially for like the majority of the grade is a presentation. And all of a sudden, literally all the people that I was turning to and being like, can you help me with accounting? Can you help me with finance? Like as soon as that announcement was made, they all in my cohort looked right at me and were like, stark white in the face, like just pale, sweaty. Can you talk in front of people? And I was like, are y'all kidding right now? Yes, I can do that. Yeah. And it was the lesson I took away from that. Everybody has a role, right? Like we all do different things well, and we all need one another because without me, they wouldn't have gotten through that particular program, that particular part of the program. Now, granted, the program is heavily slanted towards finance and accounting and all that stuff.
Right.
But I came out of it with the understanding that like we all have something to contribute. And if we designed the experiences a little more around not just what one neurotypical group of people can do well, or what one group of people can follow instructions, or that can do things that are more sequential and linear. If we did it where we allowed people to thrive in the way that they thrive, I think we'd see more people thriving in business and in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a lot of the philosophy behind like Montessori, right?
Yeah.
And some of that early of like,
you earned a camel.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Good sticker.
I'll fucking do anything for a sticker. Still true today.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I think the way that you put that was really profound. And we know Clifton's strengths and stuff like that. Like strengths obviously is based on a lot of that of your strengths are what got you here, not your ability to overcome your weaknesses. It's not to say that we need to ignore our weaknesses. We need to be aware of them, own them, and recognize how they impact us and the results that we may get and that we may try to be achieving. But ultimately, sometimes we're so focused on our weaknesses that we ignore the things that allow us to do things efficiently and effectively and bring us joy. And so, I love the way that you put that.
Yeah, man. Sure. And one thing I'll just say about the weaknesses point of things is I spent a lot of time in my life trying to overcome the weaknesses, and a lot of it, there are weaknesses that you overcome that like they're just weaknesses because you haven't actually spent any time thinking about or doing it, and you can get better at them. And then there's things that just like, I'm not going to dunk a basketball, dude. I'm 5'6". Like it's just not going to happen, right? Like I can apply myself to like, I'd have to do a lot to get there, right? So I started thinking of it through the lens of being aware of what your weaknesses are is actually a strength. Just simply the recognition of like where your no-fly zone is, I think turns a weakness to a strength because you know enough to know that's not a thing I'm going to do. So like when my clients are like, oh, can I give you this thing where like every Monday and Friday we do this thing? I'm like, no. Me doing the thing where I have to show up consistently at this window of time and it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But if you want me to think non-linearly and help you strategize your entire business over the course of an hour, let's do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got you.
I got you,
my guy. So that's awesome, man. So you moved to Port Washington. You wind up not testing into some of the courses that you were in before because people crumpling papers, et cetera, et cetera. You're finding community, building community. You wind up going to college. What'd you go to college for, and where'd you go?
I went to Temple University in Philly for film
Owls.
Yeah, exactly, man. For film and media arts. I wanted to be a filmmaker. That was my backup plan, by the way, was to be a world famous film director.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, an average backup plan.
That was my backup plan. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the number one plan?
Oh, I was going to get drafted to a D1 school to play point guard and eventually get drafted number one to play point guard for the New York Knicks.
Incredible. So you're still at that point, you were still a Knicks fan? You had not switched to the 76ers.
Yeah. And like, honestly, like I don't know why I follow basketball. It's nothing but pain for me. It's nothing but pain. So what I really do is I just follow players that I like because there's no pain in that. Like they either win or they don't, whatever. But like, it's not like a team where you're just constant heartache.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a Knicks fan for a while, and I actually shifted all the New York allegiances I had to Philadelphia when I reached what I considered my equinox, which was the point at which I had been in Philly as long as I had been in New York. As soon as I tipped, I was like, well, go Flyers.
Fascinating. That's awesome. Also, I mean, when we were growing up, the Knicks were a special team to watch as well. And
good.
And my heart still aches for Patrick Ewing. He deserved a ring. But still.
At the time, I didn't think so. Now I wish that they had. But at the time, I didn't think so because I was a short guy. So like any center-led team, I was like, nah, I'm not about that. But if it was a point guard-led team, I would have been like, yeah, let's do that.
That's where the game is now changed to a point guard, shooting guard. Yeah, for sure. Great. You're in now. You were Steph Curry before your time, brother. I'm sorry.
Always ahead of the game.
They didn't see you. Yeah, for sure. You grew up in a big man era.
I did.
So the goal was basketball. The backup plan we study at Temple is film and video and whatnot. And You said you later went on to get an MBA. Mm-hmm. Connect those dots for me. I don't know if you got an MBA later in life or
I did.
At some point.
It was later in life. There was like the long and short of it was I went to school for film, realized that I couldn't do it because I went during the transition from analog to digital. And like at that point it was like 3 hours to render a 1 minute clip. So it was like, it was just literally the worst. So all the dreams I had, I was like, man, this seems like a lot of work. I'm not going to do this. I had this charismatic, amazing photography professor. I was like, I'm going to do photography. So my next thing after I shifted off of film was I was going to be a photographer for Sports Illustrated and Maxim, classic young 20s guy thing. I was like, half naked women, me taking pictures. This sounds like a move. So that was me in my early 20s. I've since matured, thankfully. But that was my idea then. When I realized that was not going to work out for me. And not only that, when I realized that digital photography was just going to commodify photography, I was like, I'm out. I had been cooking since I was 7 or 8 years old. I swear this all connects. So I started a personal chef service.
Okay.
Yeah, always. And I want to revolutionize in-home fine dining. Again, literally nothing is ever small. It was like, I will be the number one photographer traveling to take pictures of half naked women. I will be Alfred Hitchcock or Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino. Like it was always, I will conquer. So I started this personal chef service and I did that for about 2 or 3 years while I worked in restaurants. And it was at that point where I realized all of my dreams are shattered and life is horrible. And I had met my ex-wife at that point. She wasn't my ex-wife at the time. She was a girlfriend. Anyway, and I kind of started to get my act together. I decided to try to do something with my life. And that's when I decided to go back, get my MBA. And that's how I wound up at Drexel getting my MBA. I kind of got out of the restaurant industry. I realized I didn't know how to start a business. I was like, might as well figure it out. So I went to school at Drexel, got my MBA, came out, did some management consulting, did that for about 2 years, went to a PR firm, got fired after 11 months and started my company, which I did for 7 years before getting acquired. That's the long and short version of it.
Yeah. So many nuggets in there, brother. And I'm so glad that you gave me the timeline because now I can go back through and pick apart what I want to talk about and screw the rest.
Do it.
No. So first off, you pointed out this theme, and I want to come back to it because I saw it also. Is that I'm going to be the top point guard and play for the Knicks. I'm going to be the top this. I'm going to be the top that. Where did that language or that drive come from? Was that something that you also were when you were younger? Like, I'm the fastest kid on my bike on the block. I'm going to do whatever the best. Obviously you were a good student for a long time as a younger person as well. I know that some of that changed a little bit, but where was that a pressure that you put on yourself or that was put on you?
I can't give a completely clear answer to it, but I have some hypotheses. So, having a Jewish mother, there is some pressure to perform at a certain level, at least academically. my dad was a funeral director, and he always said to me, find something you love to do so you never work a day in your life. So I took that really to heart, because he said, the alternative is you can get stuck burying dead people for the rest of your days. And I was like, oh, great. Thanks, Dad. I'm 5. So I got really into the idea of like chasing passion, right? So anything that I was like passionate about, I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to do it, I might as well be the best at it. But I think here's where the real thing, and this ties to like, I'm bringing you from like me at 3 to me at present day here in one thing here. I was obsessed with Superman when I was a kid. And I think my love of superheroes as a kid was that the only way I could conceive of being anything was to be like iconic, to be like super heroic in whatever that thing is. And that was what I kind of set my mind to in whatever I did, right? So when I was playing Little League, I wanted to be, at the time, it was Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire. I was like, I was going to hit a home run. Yeah, exactly. Did that thing with the, and I wanted to hit a home run every time I got up there, and I would get sad if I didn't. And then, basketball, I wanted to be the best. And everything was always about that. And I think it came from pressure I put on myself. I think there were some external pressures. I think some of it was like being a short white kid in the suburbs, where I felt a little like isolated, that I wanted to like prove myself at all times, maybe a little Napoleon syndrome thing. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a lot of different factors that kind of all coalesce together to make me this person that always wanted to do something substantial. And I think the only other thing that I'll point out that I think is interesting is, because my dad was a funeral director and because I was obsessed with Superman, I distinctly remember a point when I was really, really little where I became aware of my own mortality at like 3 or 4 years old. And I think it was because of that I really wanted to make my life count. In fact, when I was like 13, I got really depressed, like every 13, 12-year-old. And I saw Dead Poets Society, and that message of like carpe diem and like you only live once, and like everybody returns to the ground sort of thing. And like being around death, because my dad was a funeral director, like all of that like really seeped in. And I was like, look, you only get one shot at this. So like, what are you going to do with it? Like, leave it all on the court, make something of your life, do something incredible. So whatever I wanted to do, I always thought, well, let's do it the absolute possible best it could be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. And it sounds like you didn't use these words, but like, or maybe actually you just did, but having a chip on your shoulder.
Definitely.
And yeah, is that something that has, it's guided you deeply into whatever your next thing is, right? It's like, I'm going all the way in, and that's awesome, right? To commit. That's beautiful. We live in a world where more people are more frequently interested in commenting as opposed to committing. Right? They want to talk about the thing, not do the thing. And that's hurting us. We see that in a lot of areas of our life. And so for you, I'm wondering, was there a point where that happened, where where that chip on your shoulder got you into trouble?
I mean, I like to think that it always gets me into trouble. And I think that's how I move things along, is like, I'm always setting myself up for a little bit of failure, which I think is kind of the point, right? Like I think I have a really hard time with acknowledging achievements or getting to a certain point. And I think to a certain extent that chip on my shoulder to always be the best, it's like, it's a completely unattainable thing. So it keeps me chasing, it keeps me pushing. And I think that that's a good thing in some ways. On the other side, there's a little bit of like unresolved trauma that I probably need to work out. But I think it's gotten me in some trouble there. And it's gotten me in trouble a lot when I boast and I put that out there throughout my life. When I've had that happen and I haven't delivered for other people, that's typically where it becomes a problem. When it's for me, it's more of like, that's a driving force. Yeah. But if I tell someone, oh, I'm going to this or that or the other thing, and I don't follow through, that's a problem. So I generally try not to do that. I think I learned pretty early on that I shouldn't talk a lot of shit unless I can actually deliver on it. And the times that I do talk a lot of shit and can't deliver it, it's for me. It's not for them. It's for me.
Yeah. It's powerful self-reflection. You mentioned that you have an ex-wife. I also have been remarried, and my previous partner and I, that relationship ended about 5-6 years ago. And it was interesting because, as I mentioned before, I was the person that everybody always would turn to for life advice and love advice. And I would help everybody with their boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of what I did. And I wrote this book on authenticity and vulnerability and leadership and how it's important. So when that relationship failed, because not 100% of my actions, but I win the higher percentage of why that marriage failed over my wife or my ex-wife, I should say. And there was this interesting moment of shame, of you're an idiot, of like, you're the person that people have been coming to, my guy, where you at? Like, you literally, your relationship is ending while your book on authenticity and vulnerability is coming out, but you weren't being that with your person. Yeah. And so it was very interesting. When I think about it, I don't necessarily know if I would say I have a chip on my shoulder, but maybe I do. I don't know. I'll work on it with Sarah, my counselor. But still, it's very interesting, like we said, to go wholehearted and feel like you're the man at something, and then have it drastically blow up in your face. And in my case, unfortunately, hurt someone in the process. And so, just hearing you talk, I'm not saying that our story, I have no idea what happened in your first relationship. And so I'm not at all trying to put that on you. But it's just an interesting parallel to what you were talking and how it was resonating with me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because, as you're talking through it, I see a lot of my story in that as well. Because I went all in on it and it didn't work out. And probably one of the two most traumatic feelings I've ever felt in my life were coming back to my new apartment after having moved out and just collapsing into tears on my floor of the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And that feeling of like, how can I ever trust again? How can I ever love again? How can I ever put myself out there and be vulnerable again with someone after this? Mm-hmm. What mistakes did I make? How much of this is my fault? Like, yada, yada, all the things that go through your head. And I will say that I think for as awful as that was, and I don't know what your situation after the fact is, but I have met my freaking person. Like, my wife is undeniably my person. She is absolutely what I was looking for, and I didn't even know it. And I honestly don't think she would have been my person, and I don't think I would have been her person had I not been divorced and made the mistakes I made in my first relationship. I think all of that was incredibly useful, and I think I treat her better than I treated my first wife. I make less of the mistakes that I made in my first relationship because I'm more aware of how there are things that just don't matter that you can make matter in a relationship, and it can actually cause a rift that destroys the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I also think relationships are one of those things where it's like, sometimes just two people aren't meant to work out like that. Like, there's nobody's fault here. Like, part of the reason why you aren't good to each other in some ways, or why you say things or do it's because you're just not the fit. Right. And that's fine. That's nobody's fault. So like, I'm still friendly with my ex-wife. I have no bad blood with her. I don't think she has any with me. Like, we split relatively amicably, like, won't go into the details of it. But like, if I could go back in time, I would marry my ex-wife 1,000,000 times and I would divorce her 1,000,000 times again. Mm-hmm. And I would search everywhere high and low to find my current wife. Because sometimes things just have to happen for a reason and you learn from it. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and especially about like the authenticity side of it, and when people come to you for something like, oh, you're such a cute couple, and then your shit falls apart. Like, you feel like, I'm a fraud, everything's horrible. But like, none of us are perfect, man. We're all like humans with like big old bags of trauma. I didn't even figure it out until after I was divorced. I started seeing a therapist shortly after that. And I started getting to unpack a lot of stuff. And I was like, God damn, we're all a mess. Like we think we have it all together, but like, we have all this stuff that's like, we completely forgot it happened to us. We forgot the impact it made on us. Like, part of the reason why I think I'm a pretty self-aware person is I do a lot of that work to unpack previous trauma and previous stuff that's happened to me and what it meant and what it did to me as a person and why it made me make certain decisions, how I feel about that. So man, I feel you on it, but like, look, we're all human. It's all good. You'll be a better partner if you're in something or in a future something because of this. I can guarantee that.
Oh, I can guarantee you I am 100% a better partner. I've also found someone who really lights my life up. It's been a really cool adventure for sure. So yeah, I appreciate your reflection as well on that. An interesting thing that you brought up is superheroes. I don't know superheroes. I mean, I was asked to introduce you as a superhero. When I read that initially, I was like, "Who is this douchebag?" And right, that's what I did. Right, we got the Marvel. He's literally sitting on a Spider-Man chair. You talked about the role that Superman played growing younger. He's got the Spider-Man shirt on.
Not wearing the necklace. I usually have it. It's everything.
Yeah, he just shot a web at me. Everything's fine. But yeah, go web. So I'm curious, you mentioned that that was something that you learned when you were younger and you watched Superman when you were much younger. But the superhero is still obviously a very pervasive theme in what you do. So tell me a little bit about where that came about in your current day and why you choose to lead with it.
So when I had my agency for 7 years, it got acquired. And when that didn't work out and I left, I took 6 months off and I did some soul searching. And the first person to say anything to me about anything was my wife, who said, you're really into superheroes. And I feel like there's something there with that. Like you should really consider exploring that and thinking about that. And I was like, babe, I love you. You're my favorite person on earth. But superheroes, nobody's going to take me seriously if I start talking about superheroes in business. That's ridiculous. I love you. Thank you. I'm going to go and talk to a bunch of my speaker and author friends who know me and who have, gone through similar and I'm going to talk to them and I'll get back to you and I'll let you know what I find out. Well, what happens? What keeps coming up time and time again? Oh, Jeff, that's like your superpower. Oh man. It's like you're talking about like what it takes to become superhuman. Oh yeah. I think of you as like a superhero and this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, God damn, okay, fine. Babe, listen, you were right. You were right. And that's the thing I didn't do in my first relationship. You were right. But in this one, I made sure to do it. And what kept coming up for me time and time again, I think is it ties back to a lot of things that I've said. One, I think one of the lessons that I internalized as a kid from Superman, I don't know how much you remember the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, but that you have to do everything, including turn back time by flying around the earth in reverse to save people and to do the things you need to, especially for love. And that not only that, but everything can be taken from you at a moment's notice. And that you always stand up for truth and justice, even if it comes at great self-sacrifice, right? These are the messages I internalized as like a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. And then later on in life, having felt for years that I was just stupid and average because I didn't fit, what I realized when I discovered how to lean into my ADHD superpowers and how to embrace how I work is that I actually could remove the limits of what I was capable of. If I learned the things that I was interested in and that I wanted to be a part of, I could actually become superhuman and I could do extraordinary things. And if I were to take those abilities and point them in the right direction, I could help to make a world that's kinder, safer, more equitable, more just. I could use my power, my privilege to help make the world safer and kinder for other people. Mm-hmm. So that's the superhero part, is how do you apply your abilities to make the world a better place? And again, if you only have one shot at this, which is my belief, there's only one shot at this. You got start to end, what you going to do with it? And you don't know when your number is going to get called, mm-hmm. which I didn't tell you the part of the story that makes that continually resonate with me. On my last day of high school, my mom got into a traumatic car accident with a guaranteed overnight delivery truck, and she almost died. She was on the operating table for 8 hours, got like 9 pints of blood. She survived traumatic brain injury. Her life was forever changed. It was a random ass day. She wanted to go one town over because they had better fish at the market for my graduation party. Yeah. Any given day could be like that day. Yeah. And I'm like constantly, truthfully, like a little bit hyper vigilant about that. And like in this constant state of like, I don't know when my number's getting called. So I got to keep playing hard. I got to make sure that like today I do a thing that makes a difference. So like the superhero thing is part compulsion from trauma, mm-hmm. This like vigilance of like, you have to make your life mean something before your number gets called. But on the other side, I just internalize these messages of like, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. If you have the ability to make a change, it's your responsibility to do it. So this belief in my own ability to grow and meet the challenges of the day and my responsibility to do that is pervasive in all of the work that I do. Mm-hmm. So when I call myself a superhero, it's the same as when I call myself the world's most handsome social media and content marketing strategist. It's quippy, it's fun, people remember it, it's a little tongue in cheek. Because realistically, like, I don't have super abilities. I can't leap tall buildings, and I screw up all the time, just like superheroes in the stories do. Mm-hmm. But I commit to trying to do good in the world with the work that I do. I turn away business that doesn't fit my values. I, speak out about things that I think are important, even if it, causes me trouble in some cases. So that's where the whole superhero thing comes in, is like it's born of the trauma and it's born of the values that I think I internalized over my life.
Yeah. That's beautiful, brother. Because when you initially started talking about Superman, I got a little nervous because I'm more on the Marvel side of stuff.
Oh, me too.
And yeah, and I think the reason why is exactly what you just said, even though you weren't specifically there at the end talking about superheroes, but it's the Marvel characters all have flaws. And we can see ourselves in them, right? It's beautifully written in that way, where these superheroes still have these things that I can relate to, that you can relate to. And you talk about your trauma, you talk about ADHD, you talk about, messing up, et cetera, right? Like those are the beautiful human qualities that still attract us to a Wolverine, a Spider-Man, et cetera. We can go on and on. And a Daredevil. Or
a Deadpool.
Right? Deadpool is actually what I meant to say, not Daredevil, but shout out to Ben Affleck.
Amazing. Batfleck. No, I agree with you, man. DC are gods. Marvel are flawed super beings, and they're across the board. And I'm definitely a Marvel guy. I'm a big Spider-Man guy. Huge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. Which is dope. The new one was incredible. So yeah, but so it's refreshing to hear you talk about it, because yes, it is tongue in cheek, and I appreciate that. Talking to you a little bit beforehand and then having to read your introduction, I was like, all right, I know we're going to definitely come back to this, and I know he's going to have a story about it, because he's not some guy who's about to bust open his shirt and show me the big S on his chest and think that he's all that. And so yeah, that's it's really it's cool to hear you talk about it. It's cool to hear how you bring it into your world of leadership as well. A fun thing that you may not have realized is that you wrote a book called The Lovable Leader. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's somewhere, it's back under your kid's tent back there. But yeah. So I do one of my speeches that I give is called Love and Leadership.
Amazing. I did not know that. That's incredible.
For sure. So love is a really beautiful word, obviously, right? Love boils down to commitment, and so many other things as well. And I'm wondering, for you, a lot of times when I get pushback from people being like, well, you're going to talk about love and leadership, what's going to happen? Is HR going to roll out there? Right. And you hear people getting a little bit nervous about it. It's like, or they get nervous about it the other direction, where it's like, this can be fucking cheesy. We're going to have to get up and sing together or something. What's going to happen? And I'm wondering, how did you come to use the word love in writing your book and what you speak about? You could have chose a whole bunch of other words that could have hit it a little bit, but love, I know, nails it on the head for you. Why that word?
So there's three big reasons. So the first is that it's a beautiful alliteration. I mean, come on, lovable leader. It just rolls off the tongue. The second reason is that the inspiration of the book was my wife, because she had moved into a new manager role. And we were driving back from a vacation with friends, and she was asking me all these questions about managing people. I had done it for a while. I'm answering her questions. And I realized in talking to her, babe, it doesn't even really matter. You're so lovable that you can screw up so much and people are going to cut you slack. And then I was like, lovable leader. I was bust out my Evernote, and we created the outline of the book in the car ride home. So part of it is just that I saw that in her, that as she was going through the development of the harder skills of leadership and management, and as she was going through these various challenges with people, the thing that she always had in her back pocket that was always going to get her out of a jam was that she was lovable. Mm-hmm. She's like a Disney princess. Everybody loves my wife. So I knew that was going to be valuable. So then I got really curious. Well, what does that look like? What does that mean? Right? So I started looking into it more. I wrote a lot of my experiences, and one of the reasons why I was so drawn to the concept and why I committed to it was that I'm psychologically unemployable. I cannot have a job. I'm just the worst employee. So I've always worked for myself for that reason. And part of the reason is that I had a series of bad bosses, and I had a real problem with authority. And I just it's just a melange of reasons why I could not work for people. And what I realized is that there were things that were just missing in environments for me to be able to work there. And those things were things like care. Did this person actually care about me? And it's tough because in business, caring is weakness, right? Caring is antithetical to the profit motive. Caring about a thing, not good, right? Second thing, trust. trust is vitally important in any good relationship. And I had so many people that I worked with that I just did not trust. I didn't trust that they had my best interest in mind. I didn't even trust their direction sometimes. And that was partly because they didn't take the time to show me that they cared enough for me to even have the impetus to want to develop trust with them, right? So there was inconsistency, there was a lack of care, there were all these things, right? And the third piece was that there was a lack of safety. So if there's a lack of safety, there's a lack of care, and there's a lack of trust, well, now you're dealing with an environment that you don't exactly want to be in. And what I found is that those elements were present in all of the places that I didn't want to work. And when I thought about how I wanted to lead my people, I always wanted to make sure that they knew that I cared about them as people, first and foremost. It was important. If they were sick, stay home. I want you to be well. I don't give a crap about whatever the thing is, right? Trust, that I wanted to make sure that they knew my word was my bond, that if I said something, they could trust that that was true, and that if I promised something, that I'd follow through on that. And if I didn't, I'd at least tell them why, right? So I tried to always be on the same page with them, that I cared about them, and I tried to develop trust. And then the safety piece of it, I remember times in my career where I was like, I am on the way out. They are not going to keep me around. And that feeling of not being safe, I couldn't bring anything to work. I couldn't bring any of my best self to work. So those were three elements, right? I got really curious about it. And it wasn't until I stumbled across, I believe the name of it's an audio book / presentation by Brene Brown called The Power of Vulnerability. I'm sure you've read it or seen it. But there's a point in it where she's like in a room, I'm listening to the audiobook, and she's talking to this room of people, and she's like, how many people here in their life would say that love is important to them? And everybody raises their hand. And they're like, okay, how many of all of you go to work, or something to this effect? And they all raise their hand. So why is it that if this is one of the most important things in all of our lives, and all of us go to work as people where this is an important thing in our lives, why is this such an off-limits topic? We're not obviously talking about romantic love when we talk about love in this leadership capacity. We're talking about the things that represent what people would define as love. And Brene Brown went on to define what she thought love meant. She used words like trust, respect, kindness, safety. And I was like, oh my God, me and Mama Brene are on the same page. And I realized that when I'm talking about lovable leadership, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating the conditions where you and a leader on your team, I don't care if it's a basketball team, if it's a company, if it's a church group, I don't care what it is. If you feel care, trust, and safety with someone, there's an element there where you love them. You feel like they may love you. That's love right there. It's all different kinds of love, right? That I think belongs everywhere. I don't care what kind of environment you're in the world, people interacting with people. If there's care, trust, and safety, we have a better world. And I'm not really a hardcore capitalist, my dude. I am like, that is not the strong point of my life. I'm about like, how do we create a better world for people? Happiness, joy, love, connection. That's what I'm about. And if we can bring that stuff to work, maybe work won't suck so bad, which I think resoundingly, the great attrition, the great resignation, I think we've agreed work kind of sucks. So let's make it better.
Brother, you come on down off that pedestal and pat yourself on the damn back for dropping the brilliance. Well put, man. Thanks, beautifully put. I agree wholeheartedly, which doesn't surprise anybody because I also drink from the cup that Brene Brown's altar.
Well, tell me about your side of it. So I just did my thing, right? Like, so I just did my whole lovable leader. Here's my, let me preach to you, come read from the gospel. I didn't realize that that was your thing too. What's your take on it? What's your take on the love and leadership intersection?
Yeah. So with that program, that one came out of, I wrote this book called Leading Imperfectly. And that's about how that's how we as humans can't learn things from people who are perfect. We can only learn things from people who are imperfect. So how are we making sure we're leading from a relatable place? So kind of sparking another branch off of that tree of authenticity and vulnerability is love. I don't know what comes first, love or vulnerability in a relationship, but I know that if it's going to be successful, they probably came pretty quickly with each other. Because you can't build trust without vulnerability. You can't have love without trust. You can't have love without vulnerability. Everybody's hanging out together. So I initially thought about calling it commitment in leadership, but I was like, but love's what I want to talk about. Love is this incredible word that I think love is incredible. I think it's also brilliant in its efficiency, because love is this word that when we crack open, like one of those old school Tylenol pill capsules with all those little balls inside, right?
Yeah.
Like love is that capsule. And it's an efficient thing for us to be like when we're leaving, when you're leaving your wife in the morning or whenever the hell you leave her, you say, hey, I love you. Goodbye. Hang up the phone with your mom. I love you. Goodbye. Right. It's a very efficient way, but if we crack open the capsule, we have to make it efficient, because it would be really awkward if every time I got off the phone with my parents, if I was like, okay, thanks so much for bullying me. Hey, thanks so much for bribing the occasion. Hey, thanks so much for saying that I could do what I wanted to do with my life. Hey, thanks for laughing at my jokes. Hey, thanks for teaching me about comedy. Hey, thanks for teaching, right? Like
I gotta go.
Yeah. There's something called the Minnesota goodbye here. It would be that times 20.
Yeah.
But instead we come up with this efficient term, an effective term, which is love. But we need to crack open that capsule sometimes with the people that we worked with. And we need to talk about what does love and leadership look like, which is investment plus commitment. And investing in each other is a commitment, I should say. Commitment is this idea of patience plus persistence. Because we're got to be patient because growth is a process, and we have to be persistent because growth is a process. But how are we truly investing in those people? It goes back to kind of what I was talking about with the idea that we live in a world that's people are more interested in commenting than committing. And a boss that's more interested in commenting than committing is never going to connect, is never going to find what drives that person. They're going to assume as opposed to learn, and they're always going to miss it with each other. And so that's what it comes down to me, is that, that's why love has to play a role in leadership. It all falls back into that for me.
Have you gotten much pushback? Have you gotten any pushback from people about it?
Initial pushback, but then at the end, like for example, in like sales calls or something like that, I'm like, I think for what you're talking about, what your needs are, I think we should do my program, Love and Leadership. I'm like, well, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want it to be cheesy. We don't. So I now just don't even let them get there. I say love and leadership. And yes, I just said the word love. Here's how I talk about it. Here's how it fits in what we're talking about here.
Yep.
I'm not going to come in there and make everybody hug each other or unwanted touching, or, whatever. And so I come at it from a way that allows it to be a pill that business people will swallow.
Interesting. So mind if I tell you how I tend to approach any pushback?
Never mind it. I never mind. Yeah.
I challenge them. I say, listen, you know what? This program that I'm doing, this keynote, these workshops, they're not for every organization. A lot of organizations, realistically, they don't care. Trust is not important to them. Creating safety on the way to big goals, not super important to them. Despite the fact that all of those things are what high-performing teams invest in, despite those things, it might not be for you. So if the word love turns you off, you think it's going to be woo-woo or something like that. I mean, I've never done woo-woo, but if you don't think that that's going to be for you, I understand it's not for everybody. It's odd to bring the word love into work, but for companies that actually find it's important to care about each other, to create trust, to create safety, to create open lines of communication, it's a really good program. So you just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And I push them. I say, look, like, let's be real. If you want to like let your guard down for a second and stop bullshitting, you actually do want that work environment. You don't want to go to a place where people don't care about each other. You don't want to go to a place where people don't trust each other. You don't want to go to a place where there's not safety.
Yeah.
So
Ain't that push them on it, push it right back in there. Yeah. That's, I respect that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I get real confrontational about love.
Let me tell you what's going to happen.
Let me tell you about love.
I'm going to tell you how to eat your bagels.
Trust me, it's a good bagel.
I need gum from hearing about it. That's awesome, man. So the work that you do right now, you are a speaker, trainer, obviously author. What's filling your days right now? What does it look like?
Dude, I have like too much stuff to do and not enough. One of the downfalls of ADHD is so many interests, just so many. So my primary gigs are this. Like my primary thing is I have a productivity consulting firm that I run with a partner of mine. We build Asana and Monday.com and ClickUp and Notion and things like that. We build that for agencies and organizations and help them be more productive at work. So that's one element. And then I do strategy work, oftentimes with agencies. I help them kind of understand. I do a lot of brand strategy. So I help them with their brand, with their sales packages, with their marketing, kind of helping make sure it's all consistent and cohesive throughout. And then I incorporate leadership into everything that I do. Leadership and culture is kind of the foundation of everything I'm talking about always. And it was actually, I realized, the foundation of what I did in social media as well back in the day when I had my agency. So those are the two big things I do, is the strategist work and the productivity work. But on top of that, I have a speaking career that I'm kind of getting back into. I had to do a really hard pivot after the social media days, because that's how everybody knew me. They were like, oh, can you come and talk about Facebook ads? And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore, dude. Yeah. I hate that toxic wasteland. It's horrible. So I had to kind of take a pause and do a pivot and realize that I want to talk about cooler stuff. So I do the strategist speaker stuff. I have the podcast. I write my newsletter. I'm starting a podcast network called Shareable.fm, which I have sorely neglected, but it's like such an awesome idea of like podcasts that are worthy of being shared. And then I got an automation business that's the sister business to Super Productive. It's called Super Automated, and it's about like codeless automation systems like Automate.io and Zapier and if this then that and that sort of stuff. So automating your business. God, what else? I do all sorts of stuff. I wrote the book. I got another podcast called Rogue that's like the follow-up to Shareable, that's breaking down how somebody's superpower works so that people can steal it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
These are all things that I do. I got a daughter. She's real cool. I work a 4-day work week, so I'm squeezing all of this into 4 days, Monday through Thursday. Friday, I take off and hang out with her in that princess castle. Mm-hmm. And I got the son coming in September, so we'll see how that works. And I play video games Tuesday night. That's fun.
I love it, brother. I love it.
I do lots of stuff, man.
Man.
I'm rewriting the U.S. Constitution right now. That's a fun side project.
Okay. Just a little more about that. What is that?
I take on all sorts of weird side projects.
Not that anything else you said wasn't interesting,
Yeah.
but that was the biggest curveball.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, man, the world's on fire right now, and I just thought, we got this 250-year-old document. I'm not real fond of it. Feels like maybe it could be updated. Most constitutions last about an average of 19 years. Ours is 250 years old, and even Thomas Jefferson said maybe you should probably redo it. So it's been going this whole way. It's been going, and it's not great. So I thought, crap, here's a fun side project. I'm going to rewrite the Constitution. How would I make it? What would I change? So I rewrote it. And I'm through like Article 6 at the moment, and I did a new Bill of Rights in Article 6. So that's a fun side project that I'm doing. I have a bunch of other small blogs. I have an online dating course. So I have a lot of different things. Dude, I have a lot of different things. I cannot contain the interests. Yeah. There are too many of them. Yeah. So the online dating thing, I took everything that I learned in between my first wife and my second wife, because it was all online dating at that point, and I hadn't ever done online dating. And I took all of my knowledge I screwed up everything for like 8 months. I was just like terrible. I did shirtless selfies and everything. Like it was terrible.
Dude,
no, I did a bunch of them, and they were horrible. And I did them back when I was really I was fit. Like I had lost a lot of weight after the divorce, and I had like abs and everything. And I did them then. And then when I started gaining weight again, I still did it. Bad ideas. Anyway, so I took everything I learned after that, and what I realized was online dating is online marketing. I just put together a whole curriculum for it, and I met my wife, and we got married by a unicorn.
Amazing. That's incredible. The amount of stuff that you have, and the fact that you were married by a unicorn. As I still don't know if they were like located next, like there was a unicorn standing next to you, or
legit unicorn, an actual unicorn with a horn and everything.
Well,
hold on, I'm going to show you, because we got time, right? Check this out. That was the unicorn.
Incredible. A beautiful blow-up unicorn costume. Yeah,
that was him. That's my buddy Marco. He put a slice of pepperoni in the ring box. We play this game called Meat Shoulder, where we try to slip meat into each other's pockets. And as I was asking him for the ring, he opened the ring box and there's a slice of pepperoni there. I nearly died. It was killer. So my wife and I got married privately, like back in December of that year. And then the following September, we had this public wedding. So we could do whatever we wanted. So I wrote the entire ceremony, and we decided to get married by our friend who dressed up as a unicorn. And he was reading from a unicorn wedding guide and everything. It was like a whole thing. So Yeah.
That sounds like a night that everybody who was there will 100% remember. And I now need to play meat shoulder with my buddies.
It's the best game. If you Google, by the way, if you Google Gibbard Unicorn Philadelphia or Google Gibbard Unicorn Wedding, we have a Philly.com article about our wedding.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool.
I love it. Brother, I'm glad you're not bored. I was really worried about you there for a minute.
Yeah.
Never
bored.
As the people who are hanging out with us today, if they want to connect with you, where are you most recently asking people to point the ship? Is it, or if you want to read off every resource that you're doing?
So I used to do that. So that little experiment we just did in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the gargantuan number of freaking projects. I used to sit on a podcast and for 5 minutes, the host is like, dude, come on, let's. So I resolved the problem. I no longer do that. So on the screen, you have jeffgibbard.com, but if you drop the EFF and you just go to jgibbard.com, that's a menu. That's a series of nested menus that bring you to everything. So it's if you want to explore my content or my products or my book. And honestly, 40% of it is coming soon because I have too many projects and I can't take care of them all. But a lot of it is real deal, my blog and my podcast and all that stuff and working with me. Yeah. But jgibbard.com is the best place to go. You can find everything there. And that I just keep that updated because trying to keep up 100 different websites, just silly.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense to me. For sure. You can't be the productivity guy and all of a sudden have an obnoxiously unproductive back end. So I got one more question for you, brother.
Cool.
It stems from something that you and I have a number of similar beliefs, as come to find out. One of them is that we both believe that when this life is over, it's over. So you got to smoke it while you got it. I've talked about it here before, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it. That inside of me, I have these two warriors. One is legacy and the other one is presence. And they don't always get along. I have a 18-month-old son now. And so presence is something that's become more and more important to me, but yet it is a muscle for me that I have to work, because I've been so trained and so output to legacy. Where are we going? How will it be remembered? How will it make an impact? How will, et cetera, et cetera. How will I make somebody think? And that's a big thing, right? I live my life based on what I want to be said in my eulogy. And that's all really beautiful. It's powerful. It's legacy stuff. And, as we think about superheroes, obviously legacy, big thing. But presence also matters. Right. And you talked about 4-day work week and you're going to go play. He's literally, for those of you on the podcast, he literally has a princess castle behind him.
That's mine, not hers.
Yeah, I believe it. But yeah, you take a 4-day work week so that you can be present for that day. Not that you're not other days, but you're with me with your daughter. So I'm wondering for you, as someone who has this chip on their shoulder, who wants to be the best, who's out here doing the thing, making the impact, pushing a superhero message, and whatnot, what does legacy versus presence look like for you?
So I guess I would say, as you were talking about it, I was trying to just literally just sit in your seat and kind of see what you were saying from your vantage point. So that I could kind of try to contrast it and compare it to my own. And as you were saying it, what really occurred to me was that for me, there is almost no separation between the two at all. So for you, they're two warriors fighting. And inside of me, I feel like they are one and the same warrior, in the sense that for me, legacy and purpose are the destination, and then just be present today towards that thing. So I am living the legacy day in, day out, as I'm present. Everything that I'm doing, everything I'm saying, everything I'm trying to do in my work, I think I see that as part of the legacy. So the presence is the work to the legacy. So the legacy will be what's there when it's over, right? So I focus on the present. And part of that is truthfully, the ADHD, I only have 2 states of time, now and not now. So when I'm in now, I'm only focused on who I am, who I want to be, and who I am right now, because it could change, right? The values I have, they could evolve. My knowledge could evolve. Therefore, the legacy will evolve with it. So for me, the present is the embodiment of the path to the legacy. I don't really focus on the legacy in the way that like I stop and I'm thinking about that separately. I'm more thinking about the present in the context of legacy. I'm thinking of it as like, I have a purpose that I'm trying to achieve. It has evolved over time, and every day is another at bat to try and make that happen. Right. So, and I hear what you're saying, because I think about my obituary all the time. Like I picture people up there crying, he was the greatest guy I'd ever met and I loved him so much. I think about it all the time. And I think about that legacy, and I think about what will happen 10 years after I'm gone, 15 years after I'm gone, 20 years after I'm gone. Will people remember me? Will they care? And to a certain extent, that upsets me when I think about it. Like, what if it, it's just gone at some point? But then again, it happens to almost everyone, right? Like, no one's remembered forever, really. So I kind of try to release myself from that and just do the best I can today for the legacy I'm trying to build. And if all goes well, I'll be remembered for a very long time. And if it doesn't, whatever, I'm not going to be here to watch it. So, and
good luck, y'all.
The biggest ones are like, and I think being a father has changed it for me just a little bit. And I don't want that to sound like trite, but like realistically, the number one legacy I'm most concerned about right now is with my daughter and when my son arrives with him. I want their life to be a reflection of the type of father that I was, and the things that they value to be the type of reflection of the type of values that I instill in them. And anybody else that like remembers me because of my book or a podcast they listen to, like this one that was super dope, great. But really just trying to focus on like day to day, like do the right work towards that end.
Beautiful, brother. I appreciate your take on it. And it's always cool to hear another perspective from someone who, as we found, have a lot of similarities with. So I respect the hell out of you, brother. I'm glad that this random podcasting world brought us together. And I'm excited to hang out with you this weekend too and meet you in person. Thanks, man. Yeah, brother. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much. Y'all make sure you check out Gih-Bird.com. It's Gibbard.com. Brother, anything else for the people?
Nah, man. Just go out there and make someone's life better. Make your day better. Make someone else's day better. Go be a superhero.
I love it, brother. Thanks so much for being here, man. I appreciate you. Y'all, that was my time with my man, Jeff Gibbard. Y'all, who knew we were going to have that many similarities? What a fun conversation. Always delightfully validating to meet someone who thinks the way you do. So screw the rest of y'all. No, I'm just kidding. It's so fun kicking it in the diner with you, y'all. And reflecting on the conversation with Jeff, I appreciate how he was speaking about the legacy versus the presence, and how they're both within him, how you're trying to make each single moment matter. And then if the legacy happens, the legacy happens. But it's about making this moment matter and focusing on the now. That's something that I know I need to do better about. The futurist, the perfectionist in me sometimes starts writing stories and playing things all the way out to the end and getting nervous about them. And then anxiety creeps in. And then I got to talk to Sarah, the counselor. And yeah, you know it. But I don't know. I just appreciate his thoughts. And I know it's always great to meet another man who's brave enough to talk about love to a person wearing a 3-piece suit as well. So fun hanging out with Jeff. So fun hanging out with you, my friends. Till next time in the diner, do me a favor, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions. You all take care.